This is the Ramesseum, obviously named after Ramses. This is where you get the sense of scale, though. An important point that Stephen Mailer pointed out is if you look at the carvings on the left, they're different from the carvings on the right. Carvings on the left may be older. The carvings on the right are deeper, and they were most likely done for Ramses because there was a tendency during certain periods to deface the names of older so-called pharaohs. And so Ramses wanted to make sure, or his priest maybe wanted to make sure, that his name and all the writings about him were kept almost forever, and it would be very difficult to deface something that was so deeply cut into the stone like this. Now, we don't see so far any sign of lost ancient technology or super ancient work. This is all limestone, and again, according to Stephen and others, limestone was the preferred material afterwards because limestone was softer. You could work it with bronze chisels and stone hammers, but when it comes to carvings or buildings which were made of granite, basalt, or quartz, calcite, that requires tools that are harder than bronze. The question is, what tools were they? In the archaeological record, there are no tools, as far as I know, other than bronze chisels and stone hammers. So the harder stone is hinting at us that that work that was done is older than the pharaonic dynastic Egyptians. And like at any ancient site, you see different time periods existing. This, according to Yusuf Awiyan, is dynastic period. Again, they were working with limestone. Limestone is not very hard, so they could work it with bronze chisels and stone hammers. But these sculptures are granite. Granite is much harder, could not be properly shaped, especially not fine detail, with bronze chisels, stone hammers, and sandpaper. And possibly even more curious are the presence of the keystone cuts, which we find in different parts of the world, but they're most famous here and also in Peru and Bolivia. Keystone cuts for bronze or some kind of metal would be put in there, supposedly to hold the stones together. But what you'll notice about these ones is you can see the tools that were used, chisels. So these are not especially sophisticated examples of them, but they're present nonetheless. So in terms of a sense of scale, again, this is the statue, or part of the statue. This is part of his head and his ear, and then coming down that way, his shoulder. 1,000 tons finished, one block of stone. Originally, of course, it would have been much more than 1,000 tons because it would have been a rough piece to start with.
Put your back into it. Stop back around.
Wow. And here you can see after it fell, as the result of an earthquake supposedly, somebody came along, and this is his head, and attempted to separate a section as building material, and of course they gave up because this is rose granite, super hard stone. So here's the bottom of part of the 1,000 ton statue, and I believe this is the base on which he stood, and just the size of his feet. Here's my hand in comparison. Or 1 foot compared to a foot. My foot's about the size of his toenail. So again, finished at 1,000 tons. So how did they move it 500 miles from the quarry at Aswan? Most, if not all, of the rose granite came from the Aswan quarry. And so how was it moved? How do you move 1,000 tons? You're not obviously going to move it on rollers across a desert. Another point to take into account here at the Ramesseum is here we have limestone, which is not a particularly hard stone, but these columns, as vast as they are, at least 20 feet high, you clearly see that they were done in sections, because you can see the seam as we go down where the fill-in repair work is. So during dynastic times, when this was built, they were working with limestone and working it in sections. But as we go farther back in time to the pre-dynastic period, when they're working with granite, diorite, and basalt, quite often that's megalithic. That's a single block of stone, sometimes a single column, a single header piece of stone of larger scale. So it's not simply the hardness of the stone. So you're looking at Luxor Temple, or a very small part of it here. The sound in the background is a mosque. And this is one of the faces reputed to be Ramses II that engineer Chris Dunn believes was done with ancient high technology, because he's found what he believes are machine tool marks inside the nostrils and cutters. He's found the actual machine tool marks on the face, because the precision of this sculpture is so fine that one side is a mirror image of the other side. And right next to this head of Ramses is an incredible obelisk. It's at least 8 feet on one side at the base, and I have no idea, it's got to be 60 feet tall. Made of rose granite, brought from the quarry at Aswan. So these rose granite sculptures, which have to be 15 feet tall, that cartouche here was added later. The name of Ramses was put that after. So it's likely that this does not, the sculpture does not represent Ramses. It could be a lot older. And what Yusuf Awian pointed out, the first one has the cartouche there. The second one has the cartouche there. The third one doesn't. You see there's the cartouche with his name on it. Next to it is a dagger, but here the dagger's in the way of where it would be. So that's another sign of the great possibility that the hieroglyph does not name the original sculpture itself, but was added afterwards and possibly long after the carving was done. Copper chisels and stone hammers cannot achieve this work. This is Karnak Temple, and the very famous, this is the entrance point, and the very famous row of rams on either side that guide you in. This is most likely the original entrance, but it's been built on many times by many cultures. So it's not just one giant complex built by the quote-unquote Egyptians, but over thousands of years, and the way you can tell is by looking at the different construction styles. Now automatically what's curious to me is if you see those notches, those rectangular notches, over here on this wall, you'll see here you see two rows up there, and here you see areas where there's only one row, and they don't match bilaterally. So that could mean later repair, one side compared to the other. What you also notice is you see this building style and then this building style. You see no mortar, and then it seems that you do see mortar. So this is probably the original. It's quite common at entrance points that an original gate is the original and that everything is built around it. But we'll look more and more for stuff like this. And again, having just walked through the entryway, limestone everywhere, but right in the path is quartzite, this giant block. Hewn with quite good accuracy, it looks like, if you look at the profile here. So this to me looks like part of the original temple. Again, we're looking for the harder stones because they're actually the oldest. The softer stones like limestone would have been later, when the knowledge of the ancient technology was lost, and they had to use, for the limestone, bronze chisels and stone hammers. Here we have our first possible example of lost ancient technology. This hole. I think I can see a spiral groove, as in a drill bit inside, but you need to actually be able to get an impression with some kind of latex, some kind of other material to find out. But at least using these calipers, and this is an approximation, I am not an engineer, but an approximation 70 millimeters across, and we take it out and we move it around, and again it doesn't want to move, so it's around 70 millimeters, and then this way 90 degrees from there, and again it's around approximately the same. The gauge doesn't want to move that much, so clearly you can define this as being a round hole. This could very well be an example of where this stone had a pragmatic function, the hole had a pragmatic function. After this original civilization disappeared, the stone itself was recycled. The hole had to be simply incorporated into the next function, which may have been ceremonial. The hole wouldn't have been used, but it's still there as a testament to the fact that lost ancient technology could very well have been at work here. So this is an obelisk And I'll do a close-up later, but what's more intriguing is Jerry, who was on our tour, found a really obvious example of a core drill in this chunk of granite. That's the approximate width. Trouble is it's recessed, so we can't get a good measure of it, but you can see inside there, you can see that it's relatively round. You can see where the core, it's like a tube drill. There's a centerpiece that came out, that was popped out, and if you look deeply into here, you can see the wall or thickness of the core drill was very small. And then here you see where the core drill actually changed angle or slipped. So that's a really obvious example of most likely ancient core drilling technology. Because why else would it be here? Why would someone in modern times have come and decided to pop a sample out? But it's not through one sample that you can make a big difference. You have to find many of them. Now this is really amazing. Mark on our tour found this. This is black granite, super hard material, which just seems to be decomposing from the inside.
What we believe happened here is intense bursts of microwave, concentrated bursts of microwave or sonic waves,
Right.
altering the physics of the stone. This is black granite that you can crumble in your hands.
Which you should not be able to
Able
do.
And yet we're collecting the samples. We're going to send it to an outstanding chemist, Dr. George C. Bayer, who will analyze this and tell us how this happened.
Now
This
that's
is not natural.
No, this is a great example. A great example. So you see, samples will be sent to a laboratory in order to see what's gone on, and you can see how the surface is cracked too. Granite doesn't have a tendency, I don't think, to have deep cracks like this just from weathering or sun. But you can see look at the difference between the exterior and the interior. It seems like there was something that happened at the core of this stone that destabilized it, and now it's a complete pile of tiny, tiny little bits. Whereas once, it was quite a large, massive column. Amazing. So here we have another example. This is red granite, but you see the break is probably done maybe during Roman times in order to get a useful piece off of it there. But the way the surface of the granite has destabilized, where it's literally sloughing off like this, is not, as far as I have been told, common to granite. Granite doesn't crumble in this way. It's not the result of heat, of the sun beating on it. It's like some kind of energy was inside of it that destabilized it and is causing it now to for the stone to just like